My name is Emily Carter, and I have to share something that changed my life forever. I've struggled to put this experience into words because, honestly, it still feels too incredible to be real. But I know now that this story isn't just for me, it's for all of us. For most of my life, I believed in what I could see, touch, and prove. I've been a trauma nurse for over 15 years, spending my days and nights immersed in science, medicine, and the brutal reality of life and death. I've held the hands of people taking their final breaths. I've watched miracles happen when patients survived against impossible odds. But never, not once, did I expect that I would be the one lying on that hospital bed, caught between two worlds. It happened on what seemed like an ordinary morning. I had just finished a long night shift at the hospital, exhausted but unable to sleep. My mind was racing with thoughts about work, bills, and the endless to-do list of life. So I did what I always do when I need to clear my head. I went for a run. The streets were quiet, bathed in the soft glow of dawn. There was a light mist in the air, and for a brief moment, I felt a strange sense of peace, as if the world had paused just for me. I glanced down at my watch, 5:17 a.m. Then, in the span of a heartbeat, everything changed. I didn't hear the car. I didn't see the driver. One moment I was there, my feet pounding against the pavement. The next, I felt an overwhelming force, a violent, crushing impact, and then, nothing. I should have felt pain. I should have been afraid. But instead, I found myself somewhere else, somewhere that felt more real than anything I had ever known. The moment the car hit me, everything went silent. No screeching tires, no shouts, no pain. Just an abrupt, eerie stillness. It was as if the world had been muted. Then, I felt a strange sensation, like I was weightless, untethered from my body. At first, I didn't understand what was happening. I could see the scene below me, the crumpled form of my own body lying on the pavement, the driver stumbling out of the car horrified. A passerby rushed over, frantically dialing 911. I should have been panicking, terrified, but instead, I felt calm. An unearthly peace surrounded me, wrapping me in warmth and comfort. And then I began to rise. It wasn't like floating or flying. It was as if I was being gently pulled upward, drawn towards something unseen but undeniably real. A soft, golden light filled my vision, unlike any light I had ever encountered. It wasn't harsh or blinding, yet it illuminated everything with an almost living warmth. It was as if the light itself carried a presence, an intelligence, and I felt it calling to me. As I ascended, the world below started to fade, dissolving like mist in the morning sun. My thoughts were clear, sharper than ever before, yet my earthly worries, the hospital shift I had just finished, the unpaid bills, the stress of daily life, felt trivial, distant, as though they belonged to someone else entirely. Then I became aware of something else, or rather, someone. I wasn't alone. I could sense figures nearby, though at first they were just silhouettes in the glowing expanse. As they came closer, I recognized them, loved ones who had passed long ago. My grandmother, who had died when I was a child, stood before me looking as radiant as I had ever seen her. She smiled, her eyes filled with the kind of love that needs no words. Beside her was my childhood best friend, who had lost his battle with cancer years ago. He looked healthy, whole, free. "You're not supposed to be here yet," my grandmother said gently. Her voice wasn't just something I heard, it resonated through me, as though her words were woven into my very soul. I tried to speak, to ask what was happening, but before I could, the light around me shifted. It grew more intense, more alive, and in that moment, I knew I was standing at the threshold of something far greater than I had ever imagined. As I stood at the threshold of this radiant realm, everything around me seemed to pulse with an energy beyond words. The light was not just light. It was living, knowing, full of purpose. And then, the air around me shifted. The warmth remained, but a sense of urgency settled in, as if time itself was bending towards something important. Then, I heard a voice, not with my ears, but deep within my soul. It was calm yet powerful, carrying both authority and love. "You must see what is to come." Before I could process those words, the light around me transformed. It was as if a veil had been pulled away, revealing a vast, panoramic vision, like watching the future unfold before my very eyes. I wasn't just observing it, I felt it. Every moment carried weight, every image pressed into my being, as if it were now a part of me. The age of distraction. The first thing I saw was a world consumed by distraction. People walked through life, their faces glued to glowing screens, oblivious to the beauty around them. Families sat together but never spoke, friends gathered yet remained isolated by invisible walls of technology. Even those who once held faith seemed distant, their hearts dulled by endless noise, entertainment, and false priorities. They have forgotten what matters. Their hearts chase after the fleeting, while eternity stands before them. I wanted to look away, to deny what I was seeing, but I couldn't. It was painfully real. I saw people scrolling through their lives, searching for meaning in things that could never satisfy. And in the shadows, unseen but ever present, something sinister fed on their distraction, twisting truth, numbing minds, leading souls further from what was real. Then the vision shifted. The world was no longer drowning in distractions, but instead it was captivated by something new, something mesmerizing. I saw signs in the skies, displays of power and wonder that enthralled the masses. Beings, unlike anything I had seen before, emerged with voices that were soothing, yet carried deception beneath their beauty. They promised unity, enlightenment, and a new way forward for humanity. And yet the voice whispered again, "Do not be deceived. Even the wise will falter if they do not remain rooted in truth." People flocked to these beings, their words like honey, their presence almost divine. But something was wrong. Their eyes, though filled with light, held a depth of something else. Something hollow, something false. Even those who once followed the truth found themselves entranced, questioning everything they had once believed. But then, another wave of light burst forth, scattering the darkness. I saw people turning back, waking up from their spiritual slumber. Families prayed together, communities united in faith and love, and miracles, true miracles, began happening all around. The sick were healed, the broken were restored, and hearts once heavy with doubt were lifted in joy. But with this awakening came a price. Persecution followed like a shadow. Those who chose to stand for truth faced ridicule, isolation, and even violence. Yet their joy did not fade. Their eyes burned with a light stronger than any suffering. They knew something the world did not, that this battle was not of flesh and blood, but of something far greater. The voice spoke again, steady and unwavering. "The road will not be easy, but those who endure will see glory beyond measure." And then the final vision came. The skies above the world cracked open, and from the heavens poured forth a radiance unlike any I had ever seen. Every knee bent, every tongue cried out, not in forced submission but in undeniable recognition. He had returned, the one who was promised, the one whose name had been spoken for centuries, now stood in absolute, unshakable authority. For some, this moment was filled with unspeakable joy. For others, it was terror, because they had not believed, and now it was too late. The voice, gentle yet firm, spoke one last time. Tell them I am coming." The vision began to fade, and the brilliant light around me softened. My heart pounded as the weight of what I had seen settled into my soul. I knew, beyond any doubt, that I could not keep this to myself. And then, in an instant, I was falling back toward the world I had left behind. With a force that felt like being pulled through a narrow tunnel, I was suddenly ripped away from the brilliant light, away from the warmth, the presence, the indescribable peace. My body felt heavy, sluggish, as if I were being forced back into something too small, too fragile. And then, pain. A searing, crushing pain tore through my chest as I gasped for air, my lungs desperate for oxygen. My entire body ached, every nerve screaming as sensation flooded back into me. I heard muffled voices, urgent, frantic. Hands pressed against my ribs. A sharp jolt of electricity surged through me, and then a voice, filled with disbelief. "We've got a pulse. She's back." I opened my eyes to the blurry outlines of paramedics hovering over me. The world around me was harsh, too loud, too bright, too cold. I felt weak, my body trembling from the shock of being alive. I could barely move, barely process what had just happened. Just moments ago, at least in my mind, I had stood in the presence of something beyond human comprehension. Now, I was strapped to a stretcher, surrounded by flashing lights and panicked faces. One of the paramedics, a young woman with wide, stunned eyes, squeezed my hand. "You were gone," she whispered. 12 minutes. No pulse, no breathing. You shouldn't be here. I tried to respond, but my throat was dry, my voice barely a rasp. How could I even begin to explain what I had just experienced? How could I tell them that while they fought to bring me back, I had been somewhere else, somewhere more real than anything I had ever known? The next few days were a blur of hospital rooms, medical tests, and disbelief from doctors who couldn't understand how I had survived, let alone how I was already healing at an astonishing rate. "The injuries don't add up," one doctor muttered as he flipped through my chart. "With the impact you suffered, you should have broken bones, internal bleeding, but you don't." They called it a medical anomaly. Some used the word miracle, but not everyone was willing to admit it. I could see the struggle in their faces, the part of them that wanted to accept the impossible, but couldn't quite let go of logic. Friends and family visited, their relief evident, but so was their confusion. "You died," my best friend whispered, gripping my hand tightly. "They pronounced you dead. But now, you're sitting here, talking to me. How is this possible?" I wanted to tell them everything. I wanted to tell them about the light, the vision, the voice that had spoken to me. But how could I put something so profound into words? How could I make them understand? When I finally found the courage to speak, the reactions were mixed. Some listened in awe, their eyes wide with wonder. Others, even those closest to me, looked uncomfortable, skeptical. "Maybe it was just your brain shutting down," one nurse suggested. "People sometimes see things during near-death experiences." "Are you sure it wasn't just a dream?" a family member asked, their tone cautious. I could see it in their eyes, the hesitation, the doubt. It wasn't their fault. What I was saying should have been impossible. But I knew what I had seen. I knew it wasn't just some hallucination or a desperate trick of my dying mind. Yet for a time, I stayed silent. I kept the details to myself, letting people believe what they wanted. But deep inside, I felt the weight of the message pressing against my soul. The voice had told me, "Tell them." And I knew, no matter how difficult, no matter how many refused to believe, I couldn't keep this to myself. This wasn't just my story. This was something the world needed to hear. As I lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling in the dim glow of the night, I replayed every detail of what I had seen. The vision, the voice, the urgency in the words I had been given. It wasn't just for me, it was for all of us. I had been brought back for a reason, but how could I possibly share something so unbelievable? At first I hesitated. I told myself that maybe I had imagined it, that maybe it was just my mind trying to make sense of a traumatic event. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, the memories remained as vivid as the moment they happened. The emotions, the clarity, the overwhelming sense of purpose. It wasn't fading. And then, one night, as I drifted between sleep and wakefulness, I felt it again. The same presence, the same warmth. A voice, not from outside, but from deep within my soul. "You know what you saw, now speak." I bolted upright, my heart pounding. There was no denying it anymore. This wasn't just something that had happened to me. It was something I had been given. A responsibility. So what exactly was the message? It wasn't just about the afterlife. It wasn't just about what happens when we die. It was about now. It was about the distractions that keep us from truly living. The endless pull of technology, of social media, of trivial worries that consume our days while we ignore the things that actually matter. It was about the deception that is already creeping into the world, the slow, subtle shifting of truth, the way people are being led astray by half-truths wrapped in beautiful lies. It was about an awakening, a movement that would come shaking people from their complacency, forcing them to see what they had been blind to for so long. And most importantly, it was about a return that would come suddenly, a return that no one could predict. Tell them to be ready. When I finally started talking, really talking about what I had experienced, the reactions were exactly what I expected. Some people listened with wide eyes and open hearts. They felt the truth in my words. Others smiled politely, nodding, but I could see the doubt in their faces, the skepticism, the fear of believing something too incredible. And then there were those who dismissed me entirely. A hallucination, a dream, a delusion. But I wasn't here to convince everyone. I was here to share, because the ones who were meant to hear it, the ones who needed to hear it, would. There are moments when I still struggle with what happened to me, moments when I wonder why me, why I was given this vision, why I was sent back when so many others aren't. But then I remember that final moment before I returned, the warmth of the hand on my shoulder, the voice that spoke not just to my ears, but to my very soul. They are never alone. I am always with them, and I am coming soon. That was the reason. That was the purpose. And that is why I will never stop telling this story. It's been months since that day, since I crossed the veil, saw what lay beyond, and returned with a message I never could have imagined carrying. And yet even now, as I sit here trying to put it all into words, I still struggle to fully comprehend the enormity of what I experienced. Some nights I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying it all in my mind. The warmth, the light, the voice that spoke with an authority beyond anything on earth, the weight of the message I was given. It doesn't fade like a dream. It doesn't blur like a distant memory. It remains as sharp, as real, as undeniable as the moment it happened. I won't pretend it's been easy. There have been moments when I've questioned myself, when I've wondered if people will truly listen, or if my words will be lost in the noise of a world that moves too fast to stop and pay attention. I've faced skepticism, even ridicule, from those who insist that what I saw was nothing more than a hallucination, a product of my brain, trying to make sense of trauma. But deep down, I know the truth, because I didn't just see something, I felt it. And once you have stood in that place, once you have been enveloped by a love so powerful, so consuming, that it erases every fear, every doubt, every pain, you cannot deny it. I know what I saw, I know what I heard, and I know that I was sent back for a reason. So now I share this story, not to seek attention, not to make anyone believe out of fear, but to wake up those who are meant to hear it. To remind you that life is more than what we see, that time is not infinite, that there is something greater waiting beyond this existence, and that the choices we make now, the things we focus on, the way we treat one another, the way we live, matter. There is still time to turn away from distractions, time to see through the deception, time to awaken to the truth, time to prepare. I was given a message, but I am not the only one meant to carry it forward. Maybe you're here listening to this right now because you were meant to hear it. Maybe this is the moment that something deep inside you stirs, that quiet voice within you that has been whispering all along. There's more. Pay attention. I don't have all the answers. I don't know the exact hour or the day of what is to come. But I know this. The world is changing, and what I saw, what I was told, was clear. I am coming soon. So the question is, are you ready?